Hi, Cathy. So here's my alterations to your presentation. Thanks for pulling that together. I'm hoping that I've got the right end of the stick on this presentation. So we'll see how we go. Please feedback or get in touch whenever it suits you. So listen to this whenever it suits you and don't interfere with your rest over the weekend. So in terms of this diagram, what you'll see, I've changed the name to the Building Better Care portfolio because that is the overall programme as a whole. I am thinking about just calling that the Building Better Care programme as the only game in town, really, although it's not the only game in town because there are also other must-do things that we need to do from an infrastructure point of view and what have you as a trust. So it's not the only game in town, but it's the prime game in town. I've put Wendy Scott as the programme sponsor, as the main SRO. I think the Clinical Governance Board, I'm assuming that is the same as the one we have for the IDCR programme. Why duplicate? I think that's ideal and spot on. So I think that's probably worth, at the end of this deck, getting some names in terms of who the Clinical Governance Board is. It's important that there's some clinical leadership in terms of helping to design the new processes, documentation, etc. So we make sure it's right, it works, it's safe, and all of that as part of the service design process. I'm not sure underneath the Clinical Governance Board why there's a program board. I'm assuming we're just saying that's the duplicate of the Transformation Oversight Board. I don't know. That's the thing I'm slightly unsure about, but I could do with some clarification about that. I do understand that there will be support from the PMO. The PMO will be doing prioritisation, resource demand, visibility reporting, risks and issues, change control, project support, and all of that, and obviously benefits realisation. I think that the question about making sure that there's proper project mandates, don't know what that's called, but I think it is actually incorporated in there. That's the important thing when these things come forward. They've got a proper measure and all of that type of thing before we get measures, before we get on with them. And obviously we're clear what it is in the scope of them and who will be delivering that scope. I agree we have one programme manager overall for the whole thing. I think Wendy will want to put one of her people into that. I think that might be fine as a senior person who's really keen into it. I think that person might need some support from yourself or whatever, but we'll see. So that could be a fairly senior person supporting Wendy, and I think that'd be fine. I think in terms of the project managers, I think what we say is you'll see I've added a project manager across some of the cross-cutting enablers, but I suspect that they may need it might need more than one. Again, in terms of the actual programs themselves, you'll see I put SRO plus clinical lead, because in some cases the SRO might be an assistant chief operating officer. I also wonder whether the Building Better integrated care, I think integrated care should cut across all of this. So I actually think that's probably an enabler as well. But it's not necessarily, it's probably a blue cross-cutting one. And I've also reworded some of the changing the workplace support service review and intelligence and insight and reporting. Then on this next slide, I think what you were trying to say here, I just want to get clear about it. In the first instance, you had a different word in there. I can't remember what it was now. I think it was implementation or implement. So I'm assuming this is a project-led initiation. So initiation is the key thing, PMO-led initiation. So what you're saying is really important that when a mandate comes in, there's a set of core standards that we work to. There's a business case, there's a level of prioritisation, there's some rigour, what are the objectives, etc., etc. It's probably good to have an example of a mandate that we can share, and I wonder whether we add one of those just as a picture of one on one of the slides, and obviously we can draw one of those out afterwards. Clearly we've got some defined project delivery standards, again probably worth define project delivery standards being a slide in itself as well later on, so we're clear what those sort of things are, what do we mean by that, and obviously structured governance reporting is obvious. What I've done in terms of the delivery side, so what you're saying is when things are initiated, we make sure they're initiated properly, we make sure they're aligned to the priorities, they're aligned to the Better Care portfolio. We also check in terms of the enabling programs that they are aligned, how are they contributing to the Better Care portfolio. When we get to delivery, the PMO is clearly providing oversight of that and monitoring of that, so everyone's reporting to a consistent standard, which is probably one of the delivery standards. I've changed there, SRO and clinical lead as opposed to clinical SME or whatever. And in terms of the enablers, I've also put service design teams, so that's just to identify the fact we do need some change teams. There are change teams in the thing, so they need to be brought together. And as you can see there, I've just noticed I've misspelt joined, so it's joined up enablers. And live services, I'm assuming once we've got joined up services, they are handed over to be live, and then we do lessons learned and whatever. We need to think about live services, whether we put some more stuff around here in terms of TCO, total cost of ownership, or whatever. But we need to have a think about that in terms of live service or hand over to live or whatever. Maybe there are gateways here, I don't know, but let's not overcomplicate it. Really keen to keep it simple. In terms of the estimated PPMO resource, I think the key thing for me on this, which it's not, I appreciate, was I was thinking what we might have is what are the skill sets, that the specialist or professional skill sets that we need in each role, because we don't want any old person going to be the program manager. However, I think what I've said instead, I've put this red writing here. I think it's possibly right that I need to have a look at this again, really. That these are just the basic, and I appreciate project and program management roles. There's a wider bit of stuff which I probably need to have a look at this again in terms of what some of these things are doing. But I think we need to just say across all these levels, we suggest that there's some new professional expertise which is mixed with the internal expertise.